Paul Geigel. I'm the host of Eliza Against the World and executive director of Eliza Park. And this is my co-host, Paul Killins.
Hey, everybody. I'm Paul Killins. I'm the chairman of the board for Eliza Park. And this is going to be our episode 0, where you can kind of learn about us and get to know us and why we're doing what we're doing. So, Geigel, who are you? Where are you from?
So I'm Paul Geigel. I'm from Zebulon, North Carolina. Originally born in New Jersey.
How long were you in Jersey?
We left in 1979.
To Zebulon?
To Raleigh, North Carolina.
Cool. What about Jesus? How'd you hear about him?
Well, so I had the other Jesus for a long, long time. He was UFO Jesus for a while, and then he was Michael Jesus, the
archangel.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I grew up and I was into all kinds of crazy occult stuff, witchcraft and UFOs, Newage. I'll call it Newage because it rhymes with sewage, like New Age.
But then
I had some misfortune, and I was raised as a young boy going to church. My aunt took me to church until I was about 7 years old, and I had just the basics, I guess, enough to know. And I hated church badly, and because of that experience. And so I had some misfortunes happen in my early 40s, medical issues and existential crisis, I guess you'd say, and met a man who his name was James Cooper, an old guy who basically confronted me about being saved. Normally I would like to argue with people about salvation, but in this particular case I knew I wasn't saved, and I literally asked him, what do I do? He said, do you go to church? And I said no, and he said, you need to. And I said, I'll go today. And he started laughing. He said, it's Friday. I said, I don't care, I'll go anyway. So I went that Sunday to Calvary's Cross and just boldly stood up in front of everybody and said, told them who I was, and I've been struggling with drugs and addiction, and been out of church for almost 35 years, and I wrote a note the night before to the Lord about how I was sorry, and wrapped it up in my cigarette pack, which I was badly addicted to cigarettes, and I laid them up on the altar, and that was my first entrance into the church back in 2014. And I came out of that service healed. It was one of those things, you hear only at charismatic type stuff. I walked out with no pain and no addiction. It was absolutely amazing to be so addicted to nicotine and not even have any withdrawal until like 3 months later was the first one I had, and it was kind of mild. So I was delivered. So it was a classic deliverance thing. It was definitely not your typical spiritual birth. It was pretty intense after.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I knew parts of that story, but I had never heard the full thing. So that was cool. What do you why do you care about homelessness? Like, why is that such a big deal for you?
Well, what's funny is it really wasn't ever a big deal. I mean, outreach was my passion. My church, when I got ordained back in 2018, they elected me to be director of outreach. And anything that I'm interested in, I'm intensely interested in, almost obsessive. So I gathered a bunch of friends together and our kids, and we went out and handed out free Bibles to people at Walmart. We went out like 15 deep out in a 15 passenger van, all kids, and we just had a great time. We gave them backpacks, and I would spend hundreds of dollars on large print King James. I mean, these Bibles,
Amen.
These Bibles were probably, if sold separately, probably $25, but I found a good wholesaler. So we did that several times. We had such a great time. We would crank up like Shailin in the van, and we'd come back.
Is that the Chinese musical?
No, that's the rapper. Cheyenne
Oh,
Lynn.
yeah. No, I don't. I'm sorry. Keep going.
Yeah. So yeah, then COVID hit. Everything was shut down. We kept doing it. Our church pretty much died. It went from, we live out in the country, so the church is out here pretty small. We went from about 60 members down to just the deacons at one point, and it was about 12 people in attendance.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So I never had the chance to do it again. Daughter Hannah enjoyed it so much that she just every night during family prayer time, she just kept asking the Lord for a ministry. And so, long story short, we ended up switching churches because of some kind of inner conflict going on there with the leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And church that I attend now, they were not really so out in the outreach department. So the opportunity came up to do a church revitalization. So I jumped on that. The family, we went out there, we met some good people, met some of the people that are involved in what we're doing now peripherally. And so we started something called Agape Table, which was supposed to be where we go out, invite them back to the church for a meal and fellowship. And again, my church was not really so much into that because it's a 160-year-old church, and they've always done what they've done. So they don't really have any reference to outreach. Plus, it's a rural setting. One Sunday, I said, I'm just going to go downtown. I know the homeless need help. So I just said, I'll take my Bible and go down there and see if somebody would want some prayer or whatever. And went and got some Bojangles and talked to some panhandlers and met a few people. And then I came back the next week with a friend. The intention was to film a documentary. But I had it in my heart that I was just going to do personal ministry. It wasn't supposed to be anything other than me filling a hole inside of my heart that I've had for outreach. I went out there, talked to some people, came back the next Sunday looking for my contact person named Todd, and could not find Todd. And we ran into this man named Brad. Brad ended up being the patient zero of Eliza Park. Basically took me back to his camp. We
His
interviewed
homeless camp.
him. Yeah, his homeless camp. We met Clay and Heather. And Miss Tracy. So those four were the original people of the ministry, and told them we'd be back next week, which we did. We came back faithfully every Sunday pretty much. A couple other people jumped in and got involved, and we would bring them supplies. And my sister decided to bring out a meal. And so I saw that and I was like, this is kind of neat. And all of a sudden my outreach itch started, need to be scratched more. So I was like, I'll start bringing food. So I would go to Sam's Club and I pick up some pizzas, and then I would hear them yelling to each other, the church is here. Hey, the church is here. So then I was like, well,
Wow.
maybe we need to do a little bit of find out where they are spiritually. And so I just started talking to them, found out they went to church and stuff like that. And then I said, okay, well, I'll start doing a Bible lesson. So this was like maybe the fifth or sixth time we came out there. I had printed out Bible lessons, and I would pull out 5-gallon buckets, and we would sit and have pizza, and it would be like 6 or 7 of them and me. And it went on like that till about May.
When did you first go out with the biscuits?
It was March 3rd. It was the very first time I put boots on the ground.
And then
And
May.
yeah, the end of May, I can still remember it. To back up a little bit, we got a hold of some preachers that decided they would come out and preach because, the people are calling into church, and I thought it's only fair they should have a sermon, So I contacted a few of my preacher friends, and one of them, Steve Harris, came out, and it was absolutely amazing because we went from 6 or 7 and 35 showed up all in
Mm.
one sitting. It was scary. It was amazing. It was just, that's when it was. And even Steve had remarked that wasn't expecting this many people. And I'm like, yeah, I wasn't either. So, and the amazing thing is, we were still dispensing food. I had picked up a few contacts of some sister food ministries and was gleaning from them. So it was the first time that I've seen food multiplied. That actually does happen. I've seen it happen several times. It's one of those things where you see it, and if you ever see a miracle, you don't want to investigate it. It sounds crazy. You would think, well, yeah, you would. It's a miracle. No, it's scary, actually. It's not scary in the sense that it's like fearing, but it tests your faith. Like, it reminds you that you've been living in a fantasy this whole time, and the reality just like peeked its eye at you.
You're saying that like you saw pizza multiply, like fish
I,
and loaves.
I not well, yeah, I've seen that
You didn't
happen.
see it. You didn't see it multiply, but like they open the box and there's like 4 slices, and then 6 people come by and there's still 5
Yeah,
slices. Gotcha.
that's exactly right. I've come with like 4 bins of maybe 60, 75 pounds of food, and looked at them holding their bags and their containers, and just quickly did the math, and was like, there's absolutely no way that what I'm looking at just fit in those 4 containers. And it's just strange to see. No, it wasn't as dramatic as the 5 fish,
Yeah,
and obviously, but
it's
I've
much
seen.
faith. You
Yeah,
just need a little more
well,
faith. You'll get there.
I've had moments where I've seen things too. Like, we played music briefly and then we stopped. But there was a moment where Chris Tomlin's How Great Is Our God was playing as we were food dispensing. And it was like, I just thought of the scripture where the Lord's like, I'll open up the windows of heaven and rain down blessing upon you. Something like, the dew from heaven, or I don't know exactly the verbiage of it, but it was just an abundance of food. And these people were just like, they were desperate, and they had way more. Like, I was just seeing myself in their shoes and hearing the music at the same time. And I saw how God gives to us more than what we imagine, like above and beyond. I saw it all like happening at the same time. And it was like one of those snapshot experiences where you could never, ever, ever experience that in a church. I mean,
Yeah,
it probably did happen back 1,000+ years ago, whenever charity work was really at the front and center of Christianity. But this ministry has done crazy things to my life, like totally transformed it and turned me into a person I never thought I was. It's absolutely amazing.
well, that's awesome. So you said that you got some preachers out there. You
Hmm.
were filming a documentary. Give us an update. Where are you at now? What's a
Um,
Sunday look like?
so we've expanded as far as our scope. I am actually connected with people in the city, or starting to become connected with people in the city and grassroots organizations. And we're coming together kind of coalition style. And it looks like we're kind of spearheading, well, we actually are a homeless bill of rights in North Carolina. A gentleman I'm working with named Greg, he's an attorney. I forget his exact title, but he deals with inmates when they come out of jail. He approves them whether they're worthy to be paroled. So he's on that. He's the one that actually stamps the okay to get out of jail and be paroled. I was told what that title was, but I've already forgot it. But anyway, he's a pretty well-known guy in the area, and I met him just willy-nilly and told him what I was doing, and he was like, "Oh, that's cool." And then through him, I met a whole host of other kind of like grassroots. Some of them are more like activists. It's got a lot of justice flavor to it, affordable housing, stuff like that. And
Justice
and they,
flavor.
yeah, the justice
That's a
flavor.
T-shirt.
For sure. Let's mark that down.
Yep.
Yeah. So through that, the ministry ended up taking on this whole other advocacy side of it, that now we're talking about getting green zones in the area around the park where they're allowed to dwell and not be trespassed. But so we're getting them rights. We're actually working on getting them rights. We're probably several years out to an actual law that's enforceable, but we're working on it and we're going down that path. And we're also kind of getting the city to come out. We had a council member come out and attend one of our services, and she loved it. She's coming back, and so we're going to hitch up with her and see if we can get her to speak for us and maybe get a town square going where we can have the people we serve directly question city officials and get a dialogue going from between the top and the bottom. That's never, I don't know if it's ever happened in Raleigh before where the top and the bottom sat in one area and discussed the issues that
in the
are.
gazebo.
Yeah.
What about Sunday? Like, what are you guys doing every Sunday?
Well, now it's expanding, so it's becoming more of a real. I don't mean like what we were doing was not real before, but it's becoming more of a Orthodox service where there's. I mean, it's
Eastern?
looking like. Well, no, but
It just looks more like a church service.
we haven't got there yet. But we see it over the hill. We're seeing gospel music, and it's becoming more of a celebration. I mean, because after all, Eliza, it breaks down in different translations, but one of them is joy of the Lord. The other one is abundance, interestingly enough. And I saw that in our service when we were down the other side of the park.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say it's an abundance of joy in the Lord.
Oh,
But yeah, and I can honestly tell you with 1,000% that God smiles upon this. I mean, if you've ever felt the smile of God, it's a powerful, powerful thing to be favored by God. So he really loves people serving the modern day leper.
the outcast.
Yeah, the Luke 16 reclined on Abraham's bosom. I cannot believe that I'm having a brain aneurysm right now.
Lazarus?
Lazarus, thank you.
I'm like, what is he talking about?
Yeah. I'm getting to the age where I'm like forgetting really, really simple things. But anyway, yeah. So to serve Lazarus, because he reclined on Abraham's bosom, and that has that's real deep biblical language to recline, because John reclined on Jesus's bosom. So I'm figuring if I recline on Lazarus, I'm getting like secondhand.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe you just said that. Oh, hey, can you get me in over there?
Oh, I've told them that. They looked at me. I said, when y'all get to heaven, just remember the guy in the pickup truck. You remember
Oh my
me.
goodness, man. Oh, then they look at you and they're like, there's a chasm between us that we cannot cross. Cool. Let me do my intro, man. I'm Paul Killins.
Okay.
I'm from Grays Lake, Illinois, and my testimony kind of pretty much goes like, there was a video from an X Factor winner who essentially made like a 7-hour video about, he was a singer and he made like a 7-hour video about how the Illuminati is real. And that terrified me. I was like, if these people are evil and they're really worshiping Satan, then that's actually kind of okay, because if Satan is real, Satan is in the Bible. And if Satan's in the Bible, that means the Bible's real. And then that also means that Jesus is real. So, anyways, long story short, I got terrified into it, pretty much thinking that people were going to take over the globe and enslave me, in a terrible way, like work camp kind of a way. And so, yeah, that really got to me. And then at the same time, for months at that time, probably almost a year at that time, I had been having terrible, terrible nightmares almost every night where I would die. And so my fear of death was really, 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 really big. And I was talking to a friend of mine who got saved when we were in high school, and he's like a King's James only dispensational type of guy, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he sent me a video by this guy named Robert Breaker, and Robert Breaker is this YouTube guy. Yeah, do you know him?
Yeah, the white shirt, the tie, the
Yes, with the
whiteboard.
whiteboard. Yes, bro. Yes. Okay, you can laugh all you want, but Robert
Okay.
Breaker is the reason I'm going to heaven because I watched a video by
Nice.
Robert Breaker where he draws out the timeline of like the dispensations or whatever, and he always would put the cross in the middle, and he would,
Mhm.
and the whole whiteboard is black. Everything's black except the cross. The cross is black, but then he has a red marker only to have Jesus's blood come off of the cross. And he one day, like he was just, preaching or whatever, because my friend had sent me
Mhm.
the video, and he said like all you need is faith. And that changed my life because I was like, what, faith? Like I don't know what I had assumed because I'm a preacher's kid. Like I grew up in it and I just kind of threw it away as soon as I got out of the house and moved to college or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of how I believed, was that Robert Breaker video. So then I read, like, I went out and I got a King James Bible just like Breaker told me to do. I read like all of Genesis in it, and then I went and got a different Bible because I didn't understand what was going on. Oh, I
Yeah.
remember I had made it into Exodus, and I remember eventually like getting like the, I don't know if it was like the ESV study Bible or whatever, but when they were worshiping the golden calf,
Mhm.
like some whatever it was told me that they were like doing sexual things, and I did not get that at all out of the King James. And I was like,
Yeah.
what I thought they were just playing dice. I
Oh,
thought it
no, it
was just
was Burning
cornhole.
Man.
And so yeah, I got saved, and then I actually ended up, you know I decided I wanted to get like right religion, because I think Breaker had a video on like why I'm not a Calvinist, why I'm not a Catholic, and things like that. And so I was like, wow, there's a lot of fake religions out there. I got to figure this out. And so I wanted to go,
Mhm.
but all the seminaries in my area require you to go to church for at least a year. Then I
Mhm.
decided I've got to go to church. And so I started going to church. And then I dragged my wife along with me. We went to this big Baptist church, and I wanted to go there because I've been saved for like a week and a half at this point, and I wanted to go to this big Baptist church because I saw this huge building, and I was like, oh yeah, they're gonna have the money to, like, I don't know, give me a scholarship or something. I thought the size meant something. I got there,
Mhm.
bro, and now that I look back, it's actually kind of sad because like there was almost no one in that gigantic building, like almost
Mhm.
no one. And then I went to this other place. Oh, well, I went there one Sunday. My wife said she didn't like it. Of course, she didn't like it. She wasn't saved. And then she was complaining like, "Well, I've got a problem with Christians because they're like sexist and women can't lead and yada yada yada." And so I found this other super small church, Harvest Raleigh Church, where I go now, and they were preaching through Ruth. And so we went there, and I think we had watched Ruth 2 online. Then we went for Ruth 3, and we went back for Ruth 4. And a couple months later, if that was like August or September, by I think November, my wife declared that she believed in Jesus, which
Nice.
was really, really good because Breaker had me laying awake at night praying that
Mhm.
Jesus would not come back until my wife got saved. And that sounds
Yeah.
really, really selfish because there's like millions and billions of people on the planet. But I was like, you
Yeah.
have to hold off. Give me another week. I can get it. Please, please wait. Please wait. And so she got saved, and then we named our first daughter Ruth because of that story. But yeah, so that's that. And I care about homelessness, man, because in Raleigh, like, to when we were talking earlier today, like you have to drive past them and make a decision. You know, other people, when they're not saved, you don't have to choose to say like tell them the gospel. You can kind of forget. You can kind of pass it on, like with your coworkers and things like that. Say, I'll save it for
Mhm.
another time. But like
Mhm.
you drive past them, and they literally have signs that say, "Notice me and help me," and you have to make
Mhm.
a decision. And so it's a really big deal because I feel like we could, as a collective of Christians, we could probably do a little bit better. And so that's why I came out to Eliza Park initially as a monthly preacher. And then you swindled me into joining the board. And now we're here.
That's all right.
It's all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So, Eliza Against the World, why are we doing it? It's mainly because we love Eliza Park and we know that other people would love Eliza Park too. And we've got this culture
Hmm.
where we want to bring Eliza Park to the globe, to the world.
Hmm.
And it's really about inspiring others to practice their Christianity. And by
Hmm.
practice, we mean go and do.
Right. You
Just
hear,
go ahead.
yeah, you hear the Lord say, "I've come to do the will of my Father." And if you don't believe me for my works that you see. You just see a whole ministry that's just drenched in works. Just like there's teaching, but he's just constantly moving and serving, and not just serving, but serving people that on paper should not be served, the very worst people that you shouldn't even be around them, let alone serving them. I mean, you're putting the scum of the earth basically above royalty. That never ever ever happened in ancient history or time. So I mean, Jesus was just a radical revolutionary. I mean, there's no other way to describe him. He's just, I mean, you couldn't be more countercultural than Jesus. So I mean, yeah, he turned the world upside down with that type of thing, the foot washing, and suffered the little children to come to me, and women were like his entourage. These are things that, like, people saw that and it was like a turn off. It was
I
like
can't believe they didn't want those kids to go and talk to Jesus. Like that one was weird. I don't get that one, but it's probably a modern thing that why I don't get it. Like I would want the if I was Catholic, I would want the Pope to kiss my baby, and if I was Jewish at that time, I would want the Messiah to touch my baby too.
the disciples were orthodox. They're like, they did the proper thing you're supposed to do. Like, same thing Martha, she's like, so you see the tradition of men constantly juxtaposed on our Savior, when he rebukes it every time. He's
For
like,
sure.
so he's radically against the grain. So that's what I think today's church is. Ironically, we've gone full reset. So we're back to, we've never done that before. So we don't do that.
Yeah, but now it's almost worse because like we created the grain. We created
Yeah.
the grain and now we're sitting in it and we can't see outside of it. And we're like, no,
Hmm.
we do this because we're Christian, because it's
Mm.
good. And it's like those $100, those like $1 billion tracks that you hand out to the waitress that's like struggling to get by instead of actually tipping. I don't know, buddy. I think Jesus would have gave her the money. So
Right.
that's Eliza Against the World. We're
Mm.
here to change the culture. It'll be like
Hmm.
a week. It'll be a weekly show with me, Killins, and we'll have Geigel on here as well. We'll have a variety of different topics. Our first topic is going to be how Christians should view the homeless, how we should interact with them, how we should be loving on them, should we give them money? We're going to tackle all types of things like that. So
Hmm.
we'll call that an episode, Paul. So say goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.